Hello everyone and welcome to Hutch's Garage for episode 46 of my 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor restoration. In this episode, a new brake and clutch actuating shaft will be installed with new seals. New seals will be installed on the Bull Pinion bearing retainer and then installed onto the tractor. I will do a demonstration of how the dual disc brakes work. After that, the brakes will be installed onto the tractor. Please note that this video footage was taken at an earlier date.
So what I'm going to do now is replace the old brake / clutch shaft that runs all the way through the tractor at this point. I've gone ahead and cleaned everything up, and I've put grease in here. I used a toothbrush full of grease, wiped it in there. I want to show you the old shaft. This is the old shaft. On this end is where the right side brake operated pedal. And on this side, you can see it's terribly worn. That's where the clutch pedal was. So instead of building it up and welding it down and put it on a lathe and turn it back down, which I do not have, I had a friend of mine bush the clutch pedal. The brake pedal seemed to be okay as far as its wear, and then I bought a new shaft from Steiner. So this is the old shaft. As you can see, this is the clutch end. This part right here attaches to the brake from the left side brake that grabs the brake here. So what I'm going to do is slide the brake shaft in from the opposite end, and I want to point out one thing about the original and the new. The clutch side is tapered more, so it makes it a little bit easier to slide through. So I'm going to slide it through now from the right side all the way to the left. And I've got grease on both ends. There, we're through. Alright, I've gone farther than I probably need to go. But what I'm planning to do now is put on the seals. The replacement seals I've got for this are an SKF 11170. Alright? And it will go on like this. And I'm going to use the shaft to aid in putting this on. I'm going to put a little bit more grease around the seal. And run it over there we go. Now I'm going to put it up to there, that's where it goes. Now there's a washer that goes over the end. I'm going to also use that to help me out. So we'll put the washer on, and it's got an indentation where it goes. It basically is flush with this surface right there. So put that on there. I've got a 1 1/8 inch socket. It'll slip over the shaft, and we'll shove the shaft all the way up to here, and we'll just hammer home the new seal. I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. I think we've got it. So that seal's done. Now we'll see if that washer will come out. And there you can see the seal is exactly where it needs to be. So that's how I'm going to do the other side also. Slide that shaft back and forth. So that's the procedure for doing that. We're looking at the bearing retainer for the Bull Pinion bearing, okay? And we got to put a seal in there. The opposite side of this is the surface for the left side brake. This happens to be the left side bearing retainer, Bull Pinion bearing retainer. The seal we're going to put in here is an SKF 22446. Looks like this. It's got metal on both sides, and it'll go in just like this. So I don't have anything large enough to press it in, so I'm going to use my socket, my 3/4 inch socket. It's 1 1/8 inch, and we'll try to start this in here. It'll probably go in crooked at first. So it'll go down slightly below this surface here. Let's see, I'm low there. Okay, now let's flip it over, make sure. Alright, I'm looking all around, make sure it's seated properly. Okay, it's seated properly. There's also, I'll blow some of this green stuff out of there. That's the sealant that comes with the SKF bearings. Okay, there's an O-ring that goes here in this groove, right there. And let's find the top. Okay, the top, it'll go in sitting like this. Like this bolt will be up. And here's the O-ring. That O-ring measures approximately 0.205 inches in thickness. And the ID of it is 4.344 inches approximately. So we'll roll it on here. Get down into that groove. Now before we place it inside the tractor, or on the tractor, I'm going to use some of this Dow Corning 111. It's a valve lubricant, but it also uses it on O-rings, and we will put that around here. It'll help it go in better and keep it preserved. It's like a grease. Get that all around. And if ever one takes this apart again, it should make it easier to come out. Putting it in dry, it'll lock up on you. In other words, it'll set up to where it does not want to allow this whole thing to come out. Alright, I've got it all the way around there. The next thing to do is put it on to the tractor. That's what we'll do next. I'm ready to put on the Bull Pinion shaft bearing retainer, and this is the bearing carrier right here, this piece here that bolts on, which I did not take out. I've greased the shaft inside here for this seal right there. I've also greased the seal up to give it preliminary oiling. Then I'm also going to squirt a little bit of oil on this bearing back here because it's been sitting a while. It may not have much oil on it, so I'm going to squirt it full of oil, rotate it. Alright, so we're ready to put it on. Now I want to point out something. There's two holes in this thing, and you want this to face down, whatever side you put it on. These are interchangeable from left to right, but there's a hole right here that's a drain hole, okay? And there's also a drain here from inside here. There's also a drain just this side of the bearing that goes down back into the transmission. So you want that facing down. So this will be down, and of course that part's up. Let's see. I actually made a punch mark. Okay. So that'll be down. Like I said, right there, that'll be down. Slide this easily over the shaft. Okay, that O-ring is now up there. I'm twisting it on, lining up the holes. The brake bolts are what holds this on. For right now, I'm just going to use these bolts, a couple bolts. They're 7/16 inch threads. So I'm going to use this to hold this on temporarily, and then I'll take those off when I put the brake covers on, the brakes and the covers. So that's the inner brake surface there. Actually, 2 bolts is probably all I need. And there's no real seal here as far as excuse me, a gasket. Just that O-ring in there is what seals the oil, keeps it inside there, plus the oil seal around this shaft, just that side or this side of the bearing. So we're done with that. So the brakes can go on next, and that's probably what I'll do next. I've got a disc brake assembly here, which includes the 2 discs and the actuating assembly inside, and the outer disc drum holder, whatever you want to call it. So this is as it would look at if you pulled it off the tractor. And normally this disc here would stay on the tractor itself, on the spline. So I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to remove the actuating assembly and remove the other disc. Alright, so I've already cleaned this up right now, so I'm going to set this aside over here. I'm going to show the way I take the springs off, and then we'll show a little bit of how that thing actuates. So I get 2 screwdrivers, come up against the spring like this, and be careful, it's going to pop. And just kind of, let's get right here. Kind of work it off like that. There's 3 springs. Take it off the lower hook. Alright, so all 3 of them are out. So I'm going to lift this up and set it to the side while it's still connected to these linkages here. So there's the 5 balls. Now, like I said, this thing's already been cleaned up. And normally you don't want any lubrication in here. You might want to use graphite or something like that, possibly, if you want it to lubricate. So I'm going to set this back on and show how this works. What it is, you have these 5 balls in here, and these are 7/8 of an inch in diameter. And as this piece here moves outward, when you press on the brake, these will roll up on this ramp and expand these 2 disc assemblies here against these. Okay, you have a friction area here inside, a friction area here, which is steel, and of course the disc friction pieces here. These happen to be bonded brakes. So I'll set this back on. like that. So you might have seen this before, but how it works is it expands and squeezes on the disc to stop the tractor. And of course it's easy to do without the springs in here. Alright, so that's how that works, up and down like that. Now to put the springs back on, the easiest way I found is this. Okay, you're going to have to reach in, put this spring under the hook on the opposite side here. Hit that there. And I take a screwdriver and bring it up. Well, sometimes it's easier than said and done. Up like that. Make sure it's on both sides. Again, get it underneath there. I like having the spring this way. Okay, you gotta be careful you don't injure yourself while doing this. And that one went on pretty easy. So there you go, I have the assembly. You can see I got some wear here. What I've done is take a rotary sander, orbital sander actually, and sanded it with 100 grit to get the rust and any other things away, and it removes a little bit of surface area, but not a whole lot. So to put things back together to assemble on the tractor, all you got to do is put one disc here, center it up as best as possible, line this actuating piece through the hole, kind of lift it up, work it down like that. Now, when I put this on the tractor, this disc, I'll go ahead and put it on the tractor first. And then you lift the whole thing on, and I'll show that here in a little bit. Okay, so I'm at the point where I can put the brake assembly back together on this left side here. So first thing I'll do, we'll install the first disc onto the spline. Just simply line it up, push it home. So here I've got the brake assembly ready to go. Here's the actuating assembly there. What I want to do is go ahead and put a bolt, and I put grease on it. Let's just get it up here first. The fun part will be lining up the spline on the inside. Come on here. Alright, now I'm going to back it off, see where my holes are. Put this first bolt in. Get it started. Okay. Now, there are 5 bolts that go in here. There's 4 like this. This is a 7/16 by 3.5 inch, and there's one 3-inch 7/16 bolt, and it goes right back here. So I'm putting a little bit of grease on these bolts. Raise that up, line everything up. So now I've got 2 bolts started. Get this one in. good weight. Last one. This guy here. Alright. Throw my wrench away. These do not have any lock washers on, so I'm going to keep them that way. Anyway, so we'll snug them all down, and I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So this side is where the clutch is, obviously, and then here's the actuator thing here, and later on we'll show what goes on the end of this to actuate the brake.
That's all the time we have for in this episode. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Please continue to join me for the next episode as I restore and rebuild this 1954 International Harvester Farmall Super MTA tractor.